Hello, welcome back to our channel, where we explore the deepest and most terrifying mysteries of the world. Today, we have content that will chill even the bravest among you. We will dive into real and supernatural stories that have happened and continue to happen in haunted houses around the world. These are accounts of sinister shadows, malevolent presences, murders, and paranormal encounters that defy all logical explanations. Get ready to hear stories that will stir your mind and heart. From visions of spectral figures to eerie premonitions, these chilling episodes will leave you questioning everything you think you know about life and death. The Winchester Mansion, located in San Jose, California, is one of the most mysterious and haunted places in the United States. Its construction began in 1884 and lasted 38 years, a never-ending project until the death of its owner, Sarah Winchester, in 1922. Sarah was the widow of William Wirt Winchester, the heir to the famous Winchester Firearm Company. After the death of her husband and daughter, Sarah became convinced that she was being haunted by the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles. To protect herself, she consulted a medium who advised her to move west and build a house that should never be completed. Sarah believed that as long as construction continued, the spirits would leave her in peace. Thus, the mansion was built chaotically and without a plan, with doors that opened to walls, stairs that led nowhere, and endless corridors. The house grew to have 160 rooms, 40 staircases, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, and countless other architectural oddities. The Woman in White, the haunting of the Winchester Mansion staircases a ghostly presence. The Winchester Mansion, with its countless doors and labyrinthine corridors, holds many secrets and scary stories. Among the most frequently reported apparitions is that of a female figure known as the Woman in White. This ghostly entity is often seen on the mansion staircases, floating silently like a shadow from the past. Her presence is marked by a flowing white dress that seems to glow in the moonlight, contrasting with the dark and heavy ambience of the house. It is believed that the Woman in White is one of the many victims of the Winchester rifles, perhaps a wife or daughter of someone who met a tragic end due to these guns. She is said to roam the mansion seeking justice or peace, unable to rest while her death remains unresolved. Encounter with the cold. The appearance of the Woman in White is not just a disturbing vision, it is a complete sensory experience for those unfortunate enough to cross her path. Staff and visitors to the mansion have reported feeling a sudden and intense cold, as if an invisible door to the beyond had been opened, sucking all the warmth from the room. This cold is accompanied by an overwhelming silence, as if time itself had stopped. It is at this moment that many claim to see the spectral figure descending or ascending the stairs, her movements graceful and ethereal, almost as if she were floating. The incomprehensible whispers. One of the most terrifying aspects of encountering the Woman in White is the sound of incomprehensible whispers that accompanies her presence. These whispers are described as muffled voices, as if coming from a distant place or underwater. Some claim that the whispers are words of despair, pleas for help, or warnings of danger. Others say it is just an incoherent murmur, like a prayer forgotten over time. Regardless of the interpretation, these whispers create an atmosphere of tension and fear that is almost palpable. The feeling of despair. Those who have encountered the Woman in White report an overwhelming feeling of despair and sadness. It is as if her presence brings forth all the buried negative emotions. Some visitors have described feeling a weight on their chest, an anguish that seemed to crush them, and an irresistible urge to cry. This feeling is so intense that many left the mansion shaken and in tears, unable to explain what they felt. A never-ending story. The Woman in White remains a mystery, an entity seemingly trapped between two worlds. Her presence on the staircases of the Winchester Mansion is a constant reminder of the tragedy and suffering associated with Winchester rifles. As long as the house stands, she seems destined to wander, a shadow from the past refusing to be forgotten. Many believe the Woman in White symbolizes the lives cut short by Winchester rifles, a manifestation of the grief and remorse that Sarah Winchester tried to appease by building the mansion. However, others see her as a lost spirit, unable to find her way to eternal rest. The story of the Woman in White is just one of many haunting tales of the Winchester Mansion, a place where the veil between the living and the dead is exceptionally thin. Her presence is a chilling reminder that, for some souls, death is only the beginning of an even more disturbing existence. The Spiderweb Room, the veil between two worlds, an enigmatic design in the heart of the enigmatic Winchester mansion. There is a room that stands out not only for its peculiar decor but also for the unsettling atmosphere that surrounds it. Known as the Spiderweb Room, this space is marked by unique windows with designs resembling intricate spiderwebs. It is believed that this design choice was not merely aesthetic but symbolic, representing the web of mysteries and secrets that envelop the mansion and its history. The room was one of Sarah Winchester's favorites, the reclusive heiress who dedicated her life to the incessant construction of the mansion. Historians and enthusiasts believe that Sarah spent long hours in this room, immersed in meditation and, according to some, conducting seances. She desperately sought a way to communicate with the spirits she believed were tormenting her, victims of the guns manufactured by her family's company. The supernatural veil, the Spiderweb Room, is said to be a portal to the beyond, a place where the veil between the living and the dead is exceptionally thin. Visitors and staff of the mansion have reported strange and unsettling experiences in this room. The feeling of an invisible presence is constant, as if something or someone is watching them intently. This presence is described as heavy, oppressive, making the airfield denser and harder to breathe. The steps of the invisible. One of the most disturbing manifestations in the Spiderweb Room is the sound of footsteps. Numerous people have reported hearing slow, deliberate footsteps, as if someone is walking on the wooden floor, even when the room is empty. These steps are described as methodical, almost ritualistic, and seem to echo through the room, amplifying the silence and increasing the sense of terror. Some believe they are Sarah's steps, still wandering the room in search of answers, while others think they are the spirits she tried to summon, trapped between the world of the living and the dead. The moving shadows. In addition to the footsteps, the room is known for inexplicable shadows that move on their own. These shadows are seen on the walls, the floor, and even the ceiling, dancing erratically or sometimes moving with a terrifying calm. Some witnesses have described seeing shadowy figures resembling human forms, while others reported only dark spots that seem to slide around the room. What makes these shadows even more terrifying is that they seem to have awareness, as if they are conscious of the presence of people in the room. The whisper of the past. During visits to the Spiderweb Room, many claim to hear soft, incomprehensible whispers. These whispers seem to come from all directions and yet from nowhere at all. They are voices speaking in low, urgent tones, as if trying to convey a message forgotten by time. Some believe these whispers are the spirits of the victims of Winchester rifles, still seeking justice or redemption. The persistent mystery. The Spiderweb Room is one of the most mysterious places in the Winchester mansion, a place where the supernatural seems to lurk in every corner. What Sarah Winchester truly did in that room remains a mystery to this day. Did she really manage to communicate with the dead? Or is the room just a reflection of her troubled mind, haunted by remorse? What is certain is that the Spiderweb Room continues to be a place of fascination and terror, a place where the line between the real and the unreal is indistinct. Those who venture into this room leave with more questions than answers, with a feeling that something is lurking, waiting to be discovered. But perhaps some things are better left in the dark, where they belong. The mystery of the Spiderweb Room is an irresistible invitation for the brave, but also a warning for those who dare to seek answers to questions that may never be answered. The Seance Room, the portal between worlds. Sarah Winchester's refuge in the labyrinth of corridors and enigmatic rooms of the Winchester mansion. The Seance Room is undoubtedly one of the most intriguing and frightening places. Hidden in the heart of the mansion, this room was Sarah Winchester's refuge, a place where she sought answers to the mysteries that haunted her. It was believed that Sarah was in constant communication with spirits, using the room as a portal to the beyond. She was known to hold nightly seances, where, under the dim light of candles, she tried to connect with the souls of the dead she believed were trapped in the mansion. The sinister ambience. The séance room is small and claustrophobic, decorated with antique Victorian furniture and covered with heavy drapes that block all external light. In the center of the room is a round table where Sarah would sit, surrounded by empty chairs, as if waiting for invisible guests. A large mirror with a golden frame occupies one of the walls, reflecting the scant light that enters the room and creating an atmosphere of distortion and disorientation. This mirror is considered by many to be a portal, an object that facilitates communication with the beyond. The unexplained sounds. Reports of paranormal activity in the séance room are abundant and vary from visitors to mansion staff. Often, inexplicable sounds are heard, such as soft whispers that seem to come from all corners of the room, or macabre laughter echoing off the walls, even when no one is present. The sound of furniture being dragged, doors creaking, and heavy footsteps are frequently reported, creating an atmosphere of tension and fear. On certain nights, it is said that one can hear the sound of soft music, as if an old music box were playing on its own, a sad and hypnotizing melody that seems to come from a very distant place. Objects moving on their own. One of the scariest phenomena in the séance room is the unexplained movement of objects. Reports of candles lighting themselves, chairs moving, and books falling off shelves are common. There are stories of visitors who felt an invisible presence pulling their hair or touching their shoulders, a cold and uncomfortable sensation that chills the blood. Some claim to have seen the round table moving on its own during the séances, as if the spirits were communicating directly with Sarah. Sarah's séances. Sarah Winchester was known for her séances, which she held almost every night. During these sessions, she used a variety of spiritual instruments, including a Ouija board and a pendulum. It is believed that Sarah consulted the spirits for guidance on how to continue the construction of the mansion, following instructions she received from the beyond. It is said that the spirits requested specific rooms, doors, and corridors in an attempt to create a labyrinth that would entertain or imprison them. During these séances, Sarah supposedly entered a trance, speaking in unknown languages and frantically taking notes in a notebook. Her murmurs and gestures were often incoherent, as if she were in direct communication with entities from another world. Some witnesses of these séances reported feeling an overwhelming presence, an energy that seemed to fill the room, making the air dense and almost impossible to breathe. Those who had the courage to attend one of these sessions left the room with the feeling that they had witnessed something supernatural, something that defied logic and comprehension. The legacy of the séance room. The séance room remains one of the most enigmatic and feared places in the Winchester mansion. It is believed that the room is still inhabited by spirits summoned by Sarah, unable to find peace. The mirror on the wall is often the target of speculation, with many believing it traps the souls of the dead, imprisoning them in an eternal cycle of suffering. Visitors to the mansion still report inexplicable experiences in the séance room. Some say they feel an invisible presence watching them, while others claim to see strange reflections in the mirror, figures that should not be there. The room is a constant reminder of the mystery and terror that surround the Winchester mansion, a place where the veil between the world of the living and the dead is terrifyingly thin. The mystery of the séance room remains to this day, fueling legends and ghost stories. It is believed that Sarah Winchester is still present in some way, perhaps still trying to communicate with the spirits she believed were her responsibility. For those who venture into the mansion, the séance room is a place of fear and fascination, a testament to a story that defies time and logic. What really happened in those séances? What secrets did Sarah take to her grave? These questions remain unanswered, leaving a dark and unsettling mystery in the air. The invisible footsteps, the worker who never left the mansion. The legend of the worker. The Winchester mansion, with its endless corridors and enigmatic rooms, is a place filled with ghost stories and unexplained phenomena. Among all the stories, one of the most persistent and terrifying is that of the invisible footsteps. For decades, visitors and staff have reported hearing heavy footsteps echoing through the mansion's corridors, especially at night, when the silence becomes almost absolute. These footsteps are described as the sound of heavy boots striking the wooden floor, a sound that reverberates through the empty corridors. However, when the curious go to investigate, they never find anyone. It is said that these footsteps belong to a worker who tragically died during the mansion's construction. The legend tells of a skilled carpenter responsible for many of the mansion's intricate details. During a stormy night, while working alone in a new wing of the house, a terrible accident occurred. A wooden beam, precariously positioned, collapsed on him, crushing him instantly. The news of his death was hushed up, and some say his body was never truly found, disappearing into the depths of the constantly expanding mansion. The encounter with the invisible footsteps are not just vague sounds, they have a tangible presence that terrifies all who hear them. Imagine walking through the mansion's dark corridors at night, with only a flashlight to guide your way. The air is heavy, filled with a sense of presence that cannot be explained. Suddenly, you hear the first sounds, footsteps that start softly but soon become clearer and closer. The sound of leather boots striking the wooden floor is unmistakable, and it seems to be coming from all directions, surrounding you. The invisible footsteps, the worker who never left the mansion. The legend of the worker, the Winchester Mansion, an architectural enigma full of labyrinthine corridors and inexplicable rooms, is the backdrop for countless horror stories and supernatural events. Among the most enduring and terrifying legends is that of the invisible footsteps, a phenomenon that has haunted the house for decades. Visitors and staff frequently report hearing heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors, especially during the quiet of the night, when the silence is so thick that every sound is amplified. These footsteps are described as the sound of sturdy boots striking the wooden floor, reverberating through the mansion's vast and empty galleries. But when one goes to investigate, nothing is found, only the oppressive silence returns. According to legend, these footsteps belong to a worker who met a tragic death during the mansion's construction. He was a skilled carpenter, responsible for carving many of the intricate details that adorn the house. On a stormy night, while working alone in a new wing, a precariously positioned wooden beam collapsed, crushing him instantly. The news of his death was quickly hushed up, and rumors say that his body was never properly found, possibly lost in the ever-expanding depths of the mansion. Encounter with the invisible footsteps are not mere distant echoes, they carry with them a palpable and frightening presence. Imagine walking through the mansion's dark corridors, illuminated only by the faint light of a flashlight that barely cuts through the oppressive darkness. The air is thick, laden with an unsettling feeling, as if something is lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, you hear the unmistakable sound of leather boots striking the wooden floor. The sound is initially soft but soon intensifies, coming closer from all directions, surrounding you. It is as if the very corridors are echoing the memory of the worker who never left. Often, these footsteps are accompanied by a metallic sound, as if the worker were carrying his tools. The clinking of metal against metal is a chilling reminder that something or someone is moving with purpose. In some cases, the footsteps seem to follow people, speeding up and slowing down, as if the invisible worker is fulfilling his duty to patrol the corridors, perhaps still seeking to complete his unfinished task. The haunted presence, those who experience these encounters describe a sensation of oppression and paralyzing fear. It is as if the air around them becomes denser, making it difficult to breathe and causing a feeling of weight on the chest. Some have reported feeling a presence beside them, an invisible energy that seems to watch their every move. This sensation is so intense that many leave the mansion in a state of shock, unable to explain what they felt. There are also reports of inexplicable shadows accompanying the footsteps. These shadows are seen on the walls and floors, moving erratically or sometimes with purpose, as if following a known path. It is believed that these shadows are manifestations of the worker's spirit, trapped between the world of the living and the dead, unable to find rest. The legend of the endless corridors, the Winchester Mansion, is famous for its bizarre and disorienting architecture, with corridors that lead nowhere, doors that open to solid walls, and stairs that end in ceilings. It is said that the invisible footsteps are most active in the mansion's most remote and inaccessible corridors, areas that seem to shift location as if they are alive. Visitors who venture into these corridors often report getting lost, unable to find their way back. During these moments of disorientation, the footsteps become almost deafening, as if the spirit is trying to guide or perhaps scare those who dare to disturb its peace. Some say that, on certain nights, the footsteps can be heard coming from locked doors that should never be opened. The idea that the worker is wandering through unexplored parts of the mansion, perhaps still trying to complete a construction that will never end, is a thought that terrifies many. The Winchester Mansion, with its seemingly endless corridors, appears to be a place where time and space distort, and the worker's spirit is eternally lost in search of a conclusion. The mystery that persists, the mystery of the invisible footsteps, continues to fascinate and terrify those who visit the Winchester Mansion. Is the worker's spirit really fulfilling an eternal duty, or is it merely a manifestation of the despair and madness that permeate the house? No one knows for sure. What is clear is that the invisible footsteps are a constant reminder that the mansion is a place where the past is never truly dead, and where dark and unspeakable secrets still walk the corridors, waiting to be discovered. The invisible footsteps, always present, always watching, are a mystery that sends a chill down the spine of all who hear them. Perhaps it is the echo of a man who worked himself to death, or perhaps something more sinister lurks in the mansion's dark corridors, waiting for its moment to be revealed. What really happened to the worker and why he continues to wander is a question that remains unanswered, leaving a dark and unsettling mystery in the air, whispering secrets that no one dares to uncover. The events to this day, the Winchester Mansion remains open to the public as a museum and continues to be a place of fascination and terror. Many visitors report paranormal experiences, from feeling a strange presence to seeing apparitions. The mystery and eerie aura surrounding the mansion have never been dispelled, and it continues to be one of the most haunted places in the world. It is believed that the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles still roam the house, as well as the spirit of Sarah, who never left the site. The mansion's legacy is a mix of legend, tragedy, and mystery, attracting curious visitors and ghost hunters from around the world. The LaLaurie Mansion, the Palace of Horror in New Orleans. The dark setting of the mansion in the heart of New Orleans' charming French Quarter, where the streets are filled with history and mystery, stands a structure that draws looks of curiosity and terror, the LaLaurie Mansion. Built in 1832, this imposing three-story residence, with its immaculate facade and neoclassical elegance, hides a dark past that still echoes through its corridors. The name LaLaurie is indelibly linked to one of the most horrific stories of torture and brutality that the city has ever known. The Lady of Terror, Madame Delphine LaLaurie. The house belonged to Madame Delphine LaLaurie, an influential and wealthy socialite of New Orleans, known for her beauty, grace, and influence. Married to Dr. Leonard Lewis LaLaurie, she was a prominent figure at parties and social events of the time. Outwardly, Madame LaLaurie appeared to be the epitome of elegance and decency. However, behind the closed doors of her mansion, she hid a dark and terrifying side that was only revealed to the public on a fateful day in 1834. The discovery of horror on April 10, 1834, a fire broke out in the mansion's kitchen. As the fire spread, neighbors and rescuers rushed to help save the occupants. It was then that the true nature of the LaLauries was revealed to the world. Upon breaking into the house, rescuers were met with an indescribable scene of horror in the attic. There they discovered slaves in deplorable conditions, chained, mutilated, and subjected to unimaginable tortures. Dismembered bodies, some still alive, were scattered around the room, with body parts grotesquely altered. The atrocities included broken and deformed bones, limbs sewn into unnatural positions, and mouths sealed with iron wires. Some slaves were left to die in prolonged and agonizing torture. The fire, which was allegedly started by a slave attempting suicide to escape the tortures, revealed the macabre truth about Madame LaLaurie. The news of the massacre caused an uproar in the city. An enraged mob gathered in front of the mansion, demanding justice. However, before she could be arrested, Delphine fled, disappearing mysteriously. It is believed that she escaped to France, where she lived out her final days. The ultimate fate of Madame Lalaurie remains uncertain, as do many of the details of her horrific crimes. The haunted mansion after Madame Lalaurie fled. The mansion remained abandoned for many years, but its story of horror was never forgotten. New Orleans is a city known for its rich cultural and spiritual tapestry, where the worlds of the living and the dead often intersect. And the Lalaurie mansion, with its bloody past, became an epicenter of paranormal activity. Residents and visitors report feelings of oppression and sadness as they approach the house. There are reports of agonizing screams and moans echoing through the night from deep within the building. Some say it is possible to hear the sound of chains dragging on the floor, as if the spirits of the tortured slaves are still trapped in their eternal torment. Apparitions and inexplicable phenomena. Numerous ghostly apparitions have been seen in the mansion over the years. One of the most frequently reported figures is that of a young slave girl, allegedly pushed to her death by Madame Lalaurie, who is still seen wandering the corridors and on the roof, in an endless loop of her tragedy. Another frequently reported figure is Madame Lalaurie herself, seen as a dark shadow or a nebulous figure, often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of hatred and malice. Some visitors claim to have felt invisible hands pulling their hair or clothes or heard threatening whispers as they walked through the corridors. There are also reports of objects moving on their own, lights flickering inexplicably, and doors opening and closing by themselves. The mansion's mirrors, it is said, reflect more than just the image of the observer. Many claim to see deformed faces and figures that shouldn't be there, as if the horrors of the past are always lurking, waiting to manifest. The final mystery, the Lalaurie mansion, continues to be a dark symbol of human horrors and the supernatural. It has passed through various hands over the years, being transformed into a school, apartments, and even a museum. However, regardless of its use, the legacy of horror it carries has never disappeared. Many owners and residents have reported disturbing experiences, and some have moved out hastily, unable to endure the dark presence that permeates the place. But the most persistent mystery is the final fate of Madame Delphine Lalaurie. Despite numerous reports and theories, no one knows for sure where she died or was buried. Some believe she secretly returned to New Orleans to face her dark fate, perhaps even in the mansion itself. Others believe her spirit is trapped in the house, forced to relive her terrible crimes. What is certain is that the Lalaurie mansion, with its hidden secrets and restless spirits, remains one of the most haunted and mysterious places in New Orleans. With each passing day, the house seems to whisper the secrets of its dark past, waiting for someone to finally uncover what really happened within its walls. And so the mystery in the air remains, an eternal shadow over the Lalaurie mansion, haunting all who dare to approach, leaving a sense of fear and curiosity that never fades. The Lemp Mansion, the eternal lament of the Lemp family. The rise and fall of the Lemp family in the heart of St. Louis, Missouri, stands the Lemp Mansion, an imposing structure that, despite its architectural beauty, carries a dark and tragic past. Built in the 1860s by beer magnate William J. Lemp, the mansion was the epicenter of the Lemp family's brewing empire, which dominated the craft beer industry in the United States during the 19th century. With its spacious living rooms, elegant staircases, and intricate Victorian details, the mansion symbolized the family's wealth and power. However, behind its luxurious facade, terrible secrets and tragedies marked the lives of the Lemps. The Curse of the Lemps. The history of the Lemp Mansion is a chronicle of success turned nightmare. The beer empire began to crumble with the unexpected death of Frederick Lemp, William's favorite son, in 1901. Frederick, who had been groomed to take over the family business, died under mysterious circumstances, leaving the family devastated. Just 3 years later, William J. Lemp, the family patriarch, committed suicide in his mansion. He locked himself in his office and ended his life with a gunshot to the head, leaving the family and the city in shock. The tragedy did not end there. In 1920, William's daughter, Elsa Lemp Wright, also committed suicide in her own home. In 1922, William J. Lemp Jr., known as Billy, who had taken over the business, met the same fate as his father, taking his own life in one of the mansion's rooms. And in 1949, Charles Lemp, the last of the children, closed all the windows of the mansion, killed his dog, and then took his own life, leaving a note that read, "In consideration for me, please destroy my body. It doesn't matter how." These tragedies fueled rumors of a curse that hovered over the Lemp family. It is believed that the mansion, now a hotel and restaurant, is haunted by the spirits of the family members who died there. The suicides, combined with the brewery empire's collapse due to prohibition and mismanagement, created an aura of despair that seems to permeate the mansion's walls. Apparitions and inexplicable phenomena. The Lemp Mansion is widely considered one of the most haunted places in the United States. Many visitors and employees have reported witnessing inexplicable and terrifying phenomena. Experiences range from simple sensations of cold and sudden chills to direct encounters with ghostly apparitions. One of the most haunted areas of the mansion is the basement, which used to be a private bowling alley for the Lemp family. Many claim to see shadowy figures moving between the lanes or hear the sound of bowling balls rolling and knocking down pins, even when the basement is empty. There are also reports of children's laughter echoing through the space, despite no children being present. These laughs are attributed to the spirit of a boy known as Zeke, believed to be the illegitimate son of Billy Lemp. Zeke was born with deformities and was kept hidden in the attic during his life, a common practice of the time when wealthy families hid their disabled members. The attic, in turn, is the center of another disturbing phenomenon. Visitors have reported seeing the face of a deformed child in the windows, looking out as if waiting for something. Zeke's presence is felt not only in what is seen but also in the sense of sadness and isolation that seems to envelop the place. Many say they feel a tightness in their chest and an inexplicable urge to cry when entering the attic. Charles's room, the room where Charles Lemp committed suicide, is another point of intense paranormal activity. Those who have spent the night in the room have reported a series of inexplicable events. These include the sounds of heavy footsteps, as if someone were walking through the room, doors opening and closing on their own, and an overwhelming sensation of being watched. Some even claim to have seen a ghostly figure of a dark-looking man wandering the room or staring out the window. The most famous case involves a visitor who decided to challenge the legends and spent a night in the room. He woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling that someone was sitting on the bed beside him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a dark, indistinct figure looking at him. Terrified, he turned on the lights but found no one. The next morning, he discovered fingerprint marks on his neck, as if someone had grabbed him during the night. The mystery of the portraits, a chilling peculiarity of the Lemp Mansion, involves the family's portraits. Many visitors and employees claim that the eyes of the portraits follow their movements around the room. It is said that the eyes seem to glow in the dark, and some people even reported seeing the portraits smile or frown, changing expressions as if they were alive. This phenomenon leaves a feeling of discomfort and fear, causing many to avoid looking directly at the paintings for too long. The final mystery, with so many tragedies and reported paranormal events, the Lemp Mansion continues to be an enigma. It's hard not to feel the presence of the spirits of the Lemp family members, who seem to be trapped in the mansion, unable to find peace. The reason for this continued presence is a mystery. Some believe that the spirits are bound by the curse haunting the family, while others think that the ghosts of the Lemp family are trying to warn the living about the horrors they suffered. What really happened at the Lemp Mansion, and what continues to happen, is something we may never know. What is certain is that the mansion, with its dark corridors and haunted rooms, remains one of the most frightening and enigmatic places in St. Louis. Those who dare to enter never leave the same, carrying with them the weight of the mystery and tragedy that hangs over this palace of horror. The mystery in the air persists, like a constant whisper, reminding everyone that the story of the Lemp Mansion is far from being fully unraveled. The Villisca Axe Murder House, the dark mystery haunting Iowa. The crime scene on a quiet summer night, June 9, 1912, the small town of Villisca, Iowa, became the scene of one of the most brutal and inexplicable crimes in American history. That night, 8 people were murdered in cold blood while they slept, inside a modest house that until then, was considered a typical happy home. The house, located at 508 East 2nd Street, was the residence of the Moore family, Josiah Moore, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul. On that fateful night, 2 friends of the children, Lena and Ina Stillinger, were also staying over, unaware that they would never leave alive. The discovery of the bodies the next morning, the Moore family's neighbor, Mary Peckham, noticed the unusual silence in the house. Worried about the strange quiet, she decided to investigate and found all the doors locked. Mary called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, who used his key to enter the house. What he found inside was a scene of horror that would haunt Villisca forever. All 8 occupants of the house had been brutally murdered with an axe. Josiah was found in bed, his head crushed by a series of blows. The murderer had used the blunt side of the axe, suggesting an act of extreme violence and intent to cause suffering. Sarah was found beside Josiah, also with her head smashed. The children, both the Moore children and the Stillinger friends, were found in their beds, all victims of the same brutality. The crime scene was particularly gruesome. The victims' heads were covered with clothing, suggesting that the killer wanted to hide their faces, perhaps out of remorse or to dehumanize them. Strangely, mirrors and glass in the house were also covered. The axe used in the crime was found in the living room, covered in blood, with the victim's hair and skin still clinging to the blade. The murderer appeared to have left the house calmly, leaving a basin of bloody water nearby, where they apparently washed their hands. Disturbing details. One of the most unsettling details of the case is the position of Lena and Ina Stillinger's bodies. Lena was found with her nightgown pulled up, without undergarments, and with a blood stain on her leg, indicating a possible attempt at sexual assault. However, there is no conclusive evidence that the act occurred. Additionally, the position of her body suggests she may have awakened during the attack, struggled against the assailant, and was finally killed with a devastating blow to the head. Ina, her younger sister, was found beside her, also brutally murdered. Another strange aspect was the presence of a lantern at the foot of Josiah and Sarah's bed, with the wick turned down. This suggests that the killer entered the parents' room quietly, using minimal light to navigate the darkness. The house key and a piece of raw bacon were found next to the axe, a bizarre detail that has never been explained. Additionally, a partially consumed plate of food was found on the kitchen table, suggesting that the killer might have stopped to eat after committing the massacre. Investigations and suspicions. The crime shook the small community of Villisca, and the investigation drew national attention. Local police, along with detectives and investigators from outside, worked tirelessly to find the culprit, but the case was never solved. Various theories emerged, and several suspects were considered, but no concrete evidence was found. One of the main suspects was an itinerant reverend named George Kelly. Kelly was a traveling preacher who had been seen in town on the night of the murders. He had a history of strange and sometimes violent behavior. Kelly even confessed to the crime, but his confession was considered incoherent and possibly the product of a disturbed mind. He was tried twice but was ultimately acquitted due to lack of evidence. Another suspect was Frank Jones, a state senator and former employer of Josiah Moore. There were rumors that Moore and Jones had a bitter rivalry, both in business and personal matters. Some believed that Jones had a motive to want Moore dead and that he might have hired someone to commit the murders. However, this theory was never proven. Supernatural phenomena and persistent mysteries. Since the massacre, the Villisca Axe Murder House has become a magnet for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts. Reports of supernatural activity are abundant. Visitors claim to hear children's laughter, heavy footsteps, and in some cases, feel an invisible presence watching them. Objects move inexplicably, doors open and close by themselves, and some visitors have reported feeling a cold hand touching their back. Many believe that the spirits of the Moors and the Stillinger girls are still trapped in the house, unable to find peace. The feeling of sadness and oppression is palpable to anyone who visits the site. The house, now a museum and tourist attraction, offers overnight tours for those brave enough to explore its dark corridors and rooms where the horror occurred. The unsolved mystery. Despite all the investigations, confessions, and theories, the Villisca axe murders remain unsolved. The motive of the killer, their identity, and how they managed to enter and leave unnoticed are still a mystery. The brutal crime left an indelible mark on the town and on American history, becoming one of the country's most infamous murder cases. The mystery of the Villisca axe murder house persists, shrouded in darkness and speculation. Who killed the Moore family and the Stillinger girls that fateful night? Why did the killer leave the scene so meticulously, without leaving conclusive evidence? The answers to these questions may never be known, leaving an air of mystery and unease that continues to haunt Villisca to this day. The Whaley House, the dark and frightening mystery of San Diego. The construction of the house, the Whaley House, located at 2476 San Diego Avenue in San Diego, California, is a historic residence that gained notoriety not only for its architecture but also for the supernatural events that marked it. Built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, a successful businessman and merchant, the house was originally designed as a home for him, his wife Anna, and their children. With its elegant Victorian facade and distinctive architectural details, the Whaley House seemed, at first glance, to be a perfect place for a prosperous family life. However, this impression would quickly be overshadowed by a series of tragic and mysterious events that would haunt the house forever. Tragedies and supernatural events. The first significant tragedy at the Whaley House occurred with the death of Thomas and Anna's youngest daughter, who was named Frankie. In 1885, at just 2 years old, Frankie died of scarlet fever. Her untimely death left the family devastated and marked the beginning of a cycle of disturbing events that would shape the house's destiny. The pain of losing Frankie seemed to have cast a shadow over the residence, a harbinger of future horrors. In 1890, the Whaley House witnessed another tragedy when Thomas Whaley died of natural causes. After his death, the house underwent a series of ownership and occupancy changes, but the sense of despair and loss seemed to hang over the building. The new owners, the Horton family, and other tenants reported strange experiences, suggesting that the house was far from just an empty building. Paranormal activities and horror stories. The Whaley House began to gain a reputation for being haunted when visitors and residents started reporting disturbing experiences. Accounts of supernatural phenomena in the house include inexplicable voices, ghostly footsteps, and doors that open and close on their own. There are also stories of an invisible presence that seems to watch visitors with an unsettling intensity. One of the most notorious events related to the Whaley House is the apparition of a woman in white, believed by many to be Thomas's wife, Anna Whaley. It is thought that she remains in the house, haunted by the pain of losing her daughter and the tragic life she led. Her presence is often associated with a deep sense of sadness and hopelessness that seems to envelop those who enter the house. In addition to Anna's spirit, the figure of an elderly man, believed to be Thomas Whaley, is also frequently reported. Visitors have claimed to feel an oppressive presence and to be watched by an invisible entity. Some say the sensation is so strong it feels almost tangible, as if someone is slowly approaching, only to disappear when they turn to see who is there. The visitor experience. The Whaley House is known as a focal point of paranormal activity and psychological terror experiences. Many who visit the house report a feeling of oppression and inexplicable anxiety. During visits, especially at night, there are reports of objects moving on their own, shadows moving erratically, and a persistent feeling of being watched. A particularly disturbing detail is the sensation of a biting cold that seems to affect only certain areas of the house, as if an invisible presence were trying to manifest. Visitors often mention that even when the house is completely silent, there is a constant feeling that something is about to happen. The mystery of the Whaley House. The mystery of the Whaley House is not limited to its ghost stories and inexplicable phenomena. The house has a rich and complex history, with elements of tragedy, loss, and suffering that seem intertwined with the paranormal experiences reported by visitors. Why has the Whaley House become a focus of supernatural activity? Is it the pain and loss of its former residents that continue to haunt the site, or is there something more sinister and inexplicable at play? What makes a house become a receptacle of psychological terror and disturbing experiences? As the Whaley House continues to attract those seeking answers to its mysteries, the truth about what really happens within its walls remains an enigma. The psychological terror and supernatural events that define the house create an atmosphere of fear and mystery that persists, leaving an indelible mark on those brave enough to explore its dark and disturbing corridors. The Sallie House, the supernatural mystery of Atchison, Kansas. The history of the Sallie House. The Sallie House, located at 508 North 2nd Street in Atchison, Kansas, is a historic residence that gained notoriety due to the disturbing supernatural events that occurred within its walls. Built in 1868 by a wealthy Atchison merchant, the house was originally designed as an elegant family home. Over the decades, the house went through various ownership changes and was home to several families, but none knew that the house harbored a sinister past and a terrifying secret. The incident of Sallie. The most notorious and frightening event associated with the Sallie House is the tragic incident involving a young girl named Sallie. In 1901, Sallie, a 16-year-old girl, lived in the house with her family. She was known for her charming personality and her passion for music. The story goes that Sallie fell victim to a tragic accident when she fell down the house stairs. The fall was fatal, and Sallie died shortly after the accident. From that moment on, inexplicable events began to occur in the house, and Sallie's story became intertwined with the supernatural fate of the location. Paranormal phenomena and horror stories. After Sallie's death, reports of supernatural activities began to emerge. The house, which was once a home of joy and laughter, became a place of terror and mystery. Among the most disturbing phenomena reported are: presence of the girl in the white dress. The figure of a young girl dressed in a vintage white dress is frequently seen by visitors to the house. Many believe this figure is the spirit of Sallie, still roaming the corridors of the house. Witnesses report seeing the silhouette of the girl moving, sometimes playing with objects or even trying to interact with visitors. The presence is accompanied by a feeling of sadness and an aura of despair. Strange noises and crying. One of the most common reports from the Sallie House involves inexplicable sounds. Many visitors claim to hear the sound of children's laughter and crying amid the silence of the night. These noises are often accompanied by a feeling of intense cold that spreads through the house, as if an invisible presence were watching. The crying is especially disturbing, as it seems to echo through the walls and corridors, as if someone were pleading for help. Movement of objects. The phenomenon of object movement is another notable aspect of paranormal activities in the Sallie House. Small objects, such as toys and books, are often found out of place, as if moved by an invisible force. In some cases, visitors have reported seeing children's toys moving on their own or books falling off shelves without explanation. Feeling of presence. Many visitors report a constant feeling of being watched while in the Sallie House. This feeling is particularly intense in specific areas of the house, such as the corridor where the fatal accident occurred. The presence is described as oppressive and uncomfortable, with some visitors reporting a weight on their shoulders, as if an invisible entity were trying to communicate. Visions and apparitions. On some occasions, visitors to the house have reported disturbing visions. These visions include images of Sallie in her final moments of life, as if the tragedy were being replayed for those who witness it. These apparitions are described in vivid detail, as if Sally's spirit were trying to show what happened to her. The mystery of the Sally house, the mystery surrounding the Sally house, continues to fascinate and terrify those who visit. The central question is why Sally's spirit remains trapped in the house, and why supernatural events continue to occur. Did the tragedy of her death leave an indelible mark on the house, making it a place of eternal suffering? Or is there something more sinister at play, something that keeps Sally's spirit bound to the house and prevents her from finding peace? Besides the reports of supernatural phenomena, the Sally house is also known for its peculiar atmosphere. The feeling of desolation and sadness is palpable to those who enter the house, and many visitors report a growing sense of despair the longer they stay in the location. The Sally house continues to be a site of interest for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts seeking answers to the mysteries surrounding the residence. However, what really happened to Sally and why her presence continues to haunt the house remains an unsolved enigma. With each visit and each report of paranormal experiences, the mystery of the Sally house deepens, leaving an indelible mark of psychological terror and unease. The house, once a home of happiness and music, has become a place where past and present meet, and where the spirit of a young girl continues to wander, waiting for answers that may never be found. This story is chilling, isn't it? Tell me, would you have the courage to visit any of these houses? If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to help us keep bringing more real, terrifying, and mysterious stories. And remember, between heaven and hell, there are things we cannot understand.